You're listening to a special episode of The Secrets of Star Trek. Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and this is a special bonus episode of Secrets of Star Trek that we recorded as a thank you to our patrons at patreon.com/StarQuest for their generosity in making this and all our shows at StarQuest possible. We gave them early, exclusive access, but now we're sharing it with you to show you one of the benefits of being a patron. So please enjoy. Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to a special patron-only episode of The Secrets of Star Trek, and joining me today is Father Cory Sticha.
How's it going, Dom?
Very well, thanks. So you've decided to come back to The Secrets of Star Trek, Father?
Oh, for one little off, got it, completion, for sake of completion,
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that you agreed to do this with me long before you decided to go off and become a military chaplain. And so I appreciate you coming back for this. Yeah. Just to remind folks, last year, Father Cory and I recorded a special episode of Secrets of Star Trek to recap all of season 4 of Discovery. And now we're back again for the final season, season 5. So as a reminder, Jimmy, Father Cory, and I made a collective decision not to cover the show Discovery on a episode-by-episode basis any longer. I won't speak for the others, but for my part, it was because the show failed to live up to the quality I wanted, and I didn't want to spend every week of the season bashing it on a podcast. That's no fun for me. It might be fun for some listeners, but it's not fun for me.
Well, and there are definitely episodes where we could have talked about the entire plot of the episode in about 5 minutes. And then it was all about, the USS Emotional Discovery and, together in our togetherness. And that was it. And so we decided it was not worth it. It was just too difficult to keep a positive aspect about it, maybe.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I continued to watch the show and I watched the season 5, but we felt like we could pretty much do it justice in one wrap up episode. And so we've done that once again. We've had several requests to do a season 5 wrap up and a series wrap up because it's the final season of the series. So we're doing that now. So as a special benefit to patrons, we're making our discussion of season 5 of Discovery available first to you and then later to our general podcast audience. So let me start by taking Jimmy's role and give a brief recap of season 5. Captain Michael Burnham and the Discovery crew are still in the 32nd century, where they are on a new galaxy-wide race to recover some ancient technology that could hold the power to manipulate, destroy, or even create life. Their opponents are a Breen and human couple of ne'er-do-wells called Locke and Maul. Locke, I guess. Yeah. And in an Indiana Jones-style adventure, they race to collect clues left centuries ago by a pan-species group of scientists. The technology is from the uber-powerful progenitors who we first met in TNG and who seeded all humanoid life in the galaxy. Along the way, Saru leaves the ship to get married, Tilly returns from the academy, and we get a new first officer in Captain Raynor. I think does he get demoted to commander?
He does. He does get a demotion.
Okay. And in the end, the Breen become the big bad guys that Discovery has to face down. And in the series wrap up at the end of the final episode, we jump forward several decades to make sure Discovery ends up right where the short trek Calypso says it should be. The end of Discovery. So your overall impression of season 5?
This surprised me. This season really surprised me. It was quite good. We've complained about, previous seasons, but it was, I really enjoyed a lot of it, because they cut down on some of the emotional discovery and the together in our togetherness and all that. And there was some of it, and there was pushback on that. It was great to see with Raynor kind of pushing back on it pretty explicitly. I think this series needed that for a long time. I would count this as, and we'll talk more of overall the entire series, but I would say that this is definitely probably the second best season, with season 2 leading to Strange New Worlds being the best.
Yeah, that's my assessment as well. This was a good season after the season 2 was the best season because that gave us Captain Pike and Strange New Worlds. And I have to also say it still doesn't measure up to Strange New Worlds. You know, even at its best, Discovery is not as good as that. But nevertheless, it was good. It was fun. I liked the adventure. There was less posturing, less preaching. Not zero. There still was plenty of it. but it's a low bar to get over on that one to be less than before. And I have to say, you mentioned Rayner. My favorite character this season was Rayner. I'm like, I am on board with it. I would be on board with a series with Rayner as the captain, frankly, because he was fun. He was interesting. He was rough around the edges, and he reminded me a lot of Shaw from Picard season 3. He wasn't spit and polish by the book and all that sort of thing. He was rough around the edges, and I think that makes an interesting character. I'd like to see more with him.
Yeah. So. Well, he was played by Callum Keith Rennie, who might remember from Battlestar Galactica. He's such a good actor at playing those kind of characters. Those just kind of rough, not polished. Not necessarily. Characters. Yeah, he's not necessarily a bad guy, but he kind of gets under the skin of some of the other characters. Well, he's really good at that. You compared him to Shaw, and I could imagine Rayner as when Picard, Riker, and Shaw are going down the turbo. Somebody's getting in trouble. I could see Rayner doing that. You guys should have listened to me. Now you're in trouble. Same kind of attitude.
Yeah, and I wonder how much. Yeah, well, I mean, we could speculate until the cows come home. How much they decided to ameliorate or change Discovery based on reactions to the other series. What fans loved, they loved Picard season 3 much more than season 2 and 1. Fans love Strange New Worlds. They love Lower Decks, and these are irreverent, fun, less preachy.
Star Trek.
I think there's a lesson here. Yeah,
exactly. Well, in Picard season 3, obviously they did take some of that to heart because it was so different. Of course, Terry Matalas is a great showrunner, so that helps a lot. But so the same with this is, I think they probably did look at, although I think this was probably pretty well done by the time Picard season 3 started.
Yes.
I mean, at least it was in the can, or they were editing it at that point.
Yeah, the 5th season was officially ordered in January 2022, and then filming took place that year from June to November. So, yeah, this was 2 years ago.
Yep.
But I think even then there was still enough fan reaction to season 2, a negative reaction to season 4. Yep. I feel like that caused some
Strange New Worlds.
It feels like it.
Yeah.
It's Strange New Worlds, right? So, I think there's an element to that. So let's talk about season 5. I gave the recap. One of the interesting aspects of this is we lost some characters halfway through. Some regular, not our main characters necessarily, besides, Saru is still there, but like Oo and Detmer, the helmsman and Khan, disappeared. We know where they went. They went with the Enterprise, but
the ISS Enterprise.
It was a weird change. Yeah.
Yeah, it was, and I think there was some speculation that the reason why they did leave was they had other projects that they were working on, other shows they were working on. But yeah, it was kind of a strange decision because then all of a sudden, now we finally got to know these people, because one of our complaints among the three of us in early first couple of seasons, we don't know who this bridge crew is.
Yeah,
we know Detmer just because of her injury and everything, and Owo kind of, but not really. And now we finally know them, and then halfway through the series, this last season, they're gone. They're on the other ship, and we've got these two other
bridge
people.
Crew, yeah. Of all the bridge crew, those two were the ones we knew best. Who had survived, because there was the other one, Nilsson, who shows up again in one episode. We can talk about that in a minute,
exactly,
briefly. But the others, those are the only ones we really knew from, and so they were gone. But you're right, like it had to be like a professional commitment sort of thing. So I get that. We mentioned the Enterprise. We get to see the ISS Enterprise from the Terran Empire, which got temporal rift, dragged through an anomaly, etc. stuff. But it was kind of fun to see. Because they have the Enterprise sets from Strange New Worlds, so hey, let's use them. Exactly. And so we've got this ISS Enterprise hanging out in the 32nd century now, which
Yeah.
I thought it raised some interesting story possibilities, but they didn't really do anything with it.
No, it was just a place where they found one of their MacGuffins, their treasure hunt pieces. But it was still, it was kind of cool. It's like, you look at it, it's like, no, yeah, cool. This works.
yeah, that was fun. Of the different places when we get to, I want to talk about the different places they went to along the way. It was like a video game, like each of these places was like a level with a boss, and you had to figure out the puzzle. I mean, it felt very video game like.
Yeah, I think it's like role playing games where you got to collect all the pieces to the sword or something like that, and that kind of deal.
So another interesting thing was that David Cronenberg's character Kovich.
Oh yeah,
played a bigger role in this. He's the one who gave Burnham her mission, the Red Directive, which I don't think we ever heard of that before this.
That's kind of like a super mega top secret,
Yes,
like way above top
because
secret.
we always have yet another level of secret. But it turns out that Kovich, as it's revealed at the end, is Agent Daniels from Enterprise.
Yep.
There were a bunch of little connections to other series sprinkled throughout, by the way, but this was one of them. And so Kovich from Enterprise was the crewman from the 30th century, not the 32nd at the time. Right. And so it's kind of funny to kind of look back and say, oh, that's interesting that they're making that connection. Well, he's not like him at all.
Yeah. And there's some point where Daniel dies in Enterprise.
Yes.
The young Daniels dies in Enterprise. But of course, timey-wimey stuff, kind of changes that.
Exactly. A couple of things that are sort of unique to Discovery that I thought were issues that came up. So I want to talk a little bit about my complaints, and then we can get to the positives. But one was the problem of the instant tech, the nanotech that can reshape itself to anything. I forget what Jimmy calls it, like just like magic matter or something like that. And
silly putty,
yeah, it's like, I need a tricorder, so I just hold on my hand and a tricorder assembles from nanobots or a phaser or whatever. And there were times in this like where they kind of ignored that ability because it takes away tension. If you can make anything you need at a thought, then you're never without a fate. Like your enemy can never disarm you. Like, the Maul knocks the phaser from my hand, so I just make another one appear and shoot her. Like,
well, and they even have that where I think it was Burnham, if I remember correctly, she materialized her phaser, threw it to Book, threw it to someone else, and then did another one. Saru, and then did another one. It's like, well, couldn't you do that?
Right. It was that same episode where they went to the cemetery planet, or the uninhabited planet of burials, where they were being chased by the drones, and Saru has to run, to get them to chase him. But he doesn't have a phaser now because he had to give it to her so that she could set them up as explosives to, on overcharge. And I'm like, well, why doesn't he just make another one? Like, or tell me that we're out of magic nanobots or something. You know what I mean? Like,
well, and give me a reason. I always thought though that wasn't like nanobots. I thought that was like a transporter buffer, because of course they've got these super instant transporters now, and so I always thought that was just they had like transporter buffers with all this stuff with the tricorder or the phaser.
Well, I think that's the other thing is like the personal transporters. Like, why does anybody walk anywhere? Like, there are some scenes where they're walking corridors. Like, why bother having corridors anymore? Like, you can just instant transport everywhere.
Turbo lifts.
Sometimes they're walking, sometimes they're just boop. I'm in that place where I mean to go.
Well, it's even like the conference room there in the Starfleet headquarters is literally unconnected from anything else. You have to beam into it. It's like because that walkway is above it, and then there's transporter pads between top and bottom. There's no stairs.
No stairs.
No elevator. Nothing.
Hope the power doesn't go out. Throw them a line. So that was one of my issues. Is just I feel like the way they envisioned the future tech created story logic problems at times.
A lot of the technology that's been in Star Trek has always had that complaint. Like the transporters work until they don't. The shuttles work until they don't. The phasers work until they don't. you know.
But at least they gave you reasons why. You know, like, oh, there's a ion storm. Oh, the Felger carber is, you know, stuck in the Fitzenbauer.
The turbo encabulator isn't working anymore. And
right. You know, whereas in this is like the one that really stuck out to me was that one where Saru didn't have a phaser because he had to give it to Burnham. I'm like, but that's not how it works. You told me, you told us it works differently than that. And you got to at least tell me why you can't do it, because otherwise I'm distracted from what's going on by going, it doesn't make logical sense. So I acknowledge it's a minor complaint, but
I will say I did like the hollow tricorder where they could just like basically grab the hologram from their comm badge. Yeah. I thought that was cool technology where, you know, then they could just use the hologram. I thought that was a good use of future technology, that your tricorder is no longer a device, or a pad is no longer something you hold in your hand, but just kind of comes out of your comm badge.
That's true. I did like that. My bigger complaint is the long-standing one that too often on Discovery, all the action has to come to a standstill so that two characters or more can stand around talking about their feelings. I mean, this reached a ridiculous point, you know, comic levels in episode 9, Lagrange Point, when Book and Burnham are undercover as Breen on board the Breen warship, and they're sneaking about the ship, arguing about their relationship.
Yeah.
Like, maybe talk about that later.
Yeah. They're like, oh, hey, the device we're looking for is right through this door. Let's stand here in the hallway and, you know, tell our feelings for each other. Literally.
Oh, yeah, that's what it was a feelings talk, right? It was like their feelings for each other. It's like, maybe as the captain, you should know better than to do this now.
Yeah, that's where you say, we need to talk about this later. When we get out of here, we'll talk about it. Right. You know, we'll meet up in the bar and we'll talk about it, you know.
Right. We'll have dinner later, you know, have a nice casual dinner after all this is done. But it's like, and they weren't the only ones. This was a constant, you know, Tilly in the middle of a battle pulls aside Rayner and is like berating him for not being nice to people or stuff. You know, it's like, could we do this some other time?
Yeah. Well, the one I laughed about was Culber and Stamets, where Stamets has to do this in 2 minutes or less. And they spend 30 seconds of that talking about, oh, I'm going to lose you. I'll never see you. It's like, I don't care. Fix the problem. Then talk about it.
Fix it. Yeah. Oh, my gosh. Yeah, it was. And what happens is it drags the story to a halt. You get action. And then we just, you know, from a plot point of view, we just bring the story to a dead halt, lose all momentum. And now we're doing this other thing. And it's like, could we just keep going? Like, cause we had some good momentum there. Yeah. So that was one of my big complaints.
One thing I will say is this was much more action packed as a season, much more action packed. I mean, right from the beginning, from the first episode was almost constant action. So, I mean, that was good. I mean, I think that was a very good thing, is it was moving more. And yes, there were these moments where they did let's talk about our feelings. Let's talk about our together and our togetherness and all that. But there were so few of them compared to season 4 was the worst. I mean, season 4 was the absolute worst. Season 3 was rough, but yeah, this was probably one of the better for not having as many of those moments.
Season 4 was the one with the burn, right? Where we had to deal with finding the guy from Saru's people who.
No, season 3 was the burn. Season 4 was the black hole anomaly. Dark matter anomaly. Outside, and then they had to go outside the solar system. I remember in both season 3 and season 4 how often, like in season 3 with the burn, like when they got to that planet with the guy, and it just seemed like we just dragged. It was like 3 episodes where we're just doing nothing except talk. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is excruciating. Whereas, and even last season with the anomaly, and we had Book and his planet and his feelings about his planet, and oh my gosh, and Burnham having to go against Book, and it was like, oh, this one, you're right. Like this one, like I said, it was like a video game. It was action. Occasional moments where we had to stop, but we'll talk more about the other seasons at the end too, when we kind of talk about the whole of the series. But, you know, I joked when we did this last year, where it's like, you could make season 4 into a 2-part TNG episode. You couldn't do that with this. You couldn't do that with this. This actually, I think, used its 8 episodes pretty well.
9
9 episodes. I think he used them pretty well.
Oh, wait, sorry. 10 episodes, including the last one. Episode 10, by the way, was the longest single TV episode of all of Star Trek. It was an hour and 25 minutes.
Oh, wow.
It was long. I didn't realize it was that long, but it was long. I mean, that last 25 minutes was the series
decommissioning of Discovery.
Yeah. So it was essentially almost 2 episodes in one in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's talk about Maul and Locke as the main bad guys. The Maul was, I think, an interesting character. She was complex. Her she was a bad guy, but her motivations were complex. They were interesting, and that relationship between them was also interesting and added some layers to the story that kind of added to the whole season. I thought.
Yeah, no, I agree. She was a good character. I enjoyed her as a character. You didn't get a lot of talking about her feelings other than her feelings for Locke, but
right.
And don't tick her off. She'll literally overthrow a Breen ship to get what she wants.
Yeah. She's capable. She's the actress Eve Harlow. She plays sort of like unstable bad guys a lot.
Nice.
She's like, she was in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. She was like, she's all these different shows. She's in Fringe, Caprica, Flashpoint, Fargo, 12 Monkeys. But she always plays these kind of unbalanced bad guys. So it's kind of funny to think about that, but she's really good. Although I have to say the whole thing about her being the real Cleveland Booker's daughter was sort of wasted. I felt I didn't what was the point of all that? I didn't understand. They make a connection between her and Book.
They built this Cleveland Booker that he had taken his name after up as this great character, this great what do they call the role that they did? The work that they would do. They would go travel
courier.
Like he was this great courier and kind of a swindler and things like that, and just this good example for Book. And then they just pop it by like, no, he was a terrible dad. He was a mean, awful person, and maybe that shows her character, that because she didn't have that relationship with him. I don't know, but it would have been good to outside. Obviously, they want to have that conflict between the two of them, where he sees him as this great guy and she sees him as this horrible father.
Right. And I suppose it just was, a way to make a connection between them. But I just didn't feel like they did much with that. And just even the whole Cleveland Booker mentor thing, I never thought was all that interesting.
No.
For like why this guy had his name. Like, I didn't feel like they told us why this guy had, really told us why this guy took this name, Cleveland Booker, who's not even human. He's Qui-Gon, whatever it was. Qui-Gon. It was weird, and I just never got it. And then they added this whole other part to it. I'm like, so I didn't get that. But apart from that, I liked Maul and Locke. I like the fact that we peel back the layers of these characters as the season goes on, and they're not just two-dimensional swindlers. Yeah. He's the heir to the Breen Empire.
Yep.
I mean, and they're sort of Romeo and Juliet.
Yep. And we get to see the Breen outside of their suits, which is pretty. Right. And that they've got kind of two forms, where one of it's more solid, one of them's more, I don't know, gaseous.
Gelatin.
Gelatin. Yeah, I don't know. But that's something we've never seen. We've always seen the Breens with their masks and everything, but never.
Yeah.
Without that.
And the Breen language, which is incomprehensible. Yeah. Yep. I'd seen there were some novels, which I know the novels are not necessarily canon, that tried to explain it as the Breen were an empire, a multicultural, multi-species empire, which wanted to remove all differences. And so everyone all the time wore these encounter suits to make them all look exactly the same. And that was how that story did it. But this was interesting too, is just that they wear them as a cultural thing. And when they expose when they are exposed from it, they can either be in these two forms.
Right.
I thought
too
breed was
that,
interesting.
that they don't breathe oxygen the same way we do. Their atmosphere, their native planet is different, and that's part of the reason why they wear them too. But they can exist without.
Right. Right. And so Locke is running around without that suit all the time, and nobody knows he's a Breen because no one's ever really seen a Breen outside the suit. Yeah. Yeah, that was I like that. That was interesting. I like learning more about the Breen. They were the one big culture that we really hadn't gotten much about in Star Trek. We really hadn't dug into. Maybe the Zinti is another one that we really haven't done much with. And maybe that's a future in Strange New Worlds or something.
Yeah, of course that just came up they just created that for Enterprise, but yeah, we really don't know much about the Zinti cultures.
Oh, not Zindi.
Oh, Zinti.
But the Zinti, the ones from the feline species from the animated series.
Yep, sorry.
Yeah, I know, it's a confusing name. That's a great job in Enterprise, guys.
Pick a name that's close to something that was already canon, yeah. Well,
yeah. I
guess the animated series was kind of up in question at that point, but it's been accepted now.
And they totally stole that from Larry Niven, right?
He's the one who wrote he took his book and converted it to the story.
Right. I guess it's not stealing if he wrote it. If he used his own creation.
I think we talked about that one, didn't we?
Did we do that one? I think we did. Yeah, I think we did do that one. It's been a while, I think.
Yep.
All right, so let's talk about Raynor. Like I said, my favorite new character from the season. The curmudgeon who won't play ball in the nice new Starfleet. He's a throwback. My favorite bit with him might have been the whole episode where he's supposed to be getting to know the crew. Oh, and he gives each of them 30 seconds to tell them something about themselves.
Yeah, 30 seconds. And you got 10 words,
Yeah. And Tilly just is furious about it. There's no way you could be getting to know these people in just 10 seconds each. And then it turns out later how he uses each of those bits I mean, it's improbable that those very particular bits were what was important later, but he does use it. And I'm like, yes, that's right.
Yeah, exactly. And it was such a fun scene too. Just tell me something about you that I won't know. And it's yes. How do you do that?
It's the worst job interview question.
Exactly.
It's in 10 words. He does end up bending a little, he kind of gives in a bit by the end, which is to be expected. That's how they're going to write him, is that, he kind of gives into the Discovery way, but
not completely, not by a long shot. No. I mean, he's still even pretty rough around the edges by the end. I think part of it too, actually, you see the Discovery crew starts to get his respect as well as they respect him. It works both ways. That he earns their respect, they earn his.
Right. At one point, he talks about how Burnham runs a much more collaborative bridge. On his bridge, he was the sole authority, whereas Burnham does this whole okay, everybody pitch in. What do y'all think? Captain by committee, which I don't think is great, but it's all right. It works in the season.
He was very much more like Lorca as well.
Yeah. Yeah, which I kind of liked Lorca, to be honest.
Oh yeah, Lorca was great, especially once we found out that he was actually evil Terran. Terran Lorca.
Yeah, Terran Empire Lorca. So another interesting aspect was Culber. We mentioned Culber before. Culber doing the Trill personality transfer ritual. That was from DS9 season 3 episode Facets. That's where Dax had all of her personalities transferred to people, including Quark, who had to be the woman, which was
the old grandmother that's combing her hair. That's such a great scene.
Yes, I love that. Armin Shimmerman just totally dove into that one. But it was interesting to see Culber kind of be different. I mean, the actor had to kind of be a different character. I like that.
I preferred Wilson Cruz as the Trill personality. Yeah. He was much more fun. He was not as serious,
a little less uptight. Yeah. I feel like they really, with Culber especially, they totally have ignored the fact that he died. I mean, I think it does come up during this season.
Towards the end it did.
Towards the end. but there's still this aspect, like he's more, off kilter because of this Trill personality transplant than he is by the fact that he died and came back to life. It's like, I would think that would be a much more traumatic event in your life. But
died, lived in the spore world, and then came back. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But I did like that. I that was an aspect I really liked. So I want to talk about a couple of specific episodes, and if you've got one you want to talk about, bring it in too. But one I want to talk about is the time bug episode, because I really enjoyed the leaping through time. They go to when Discovery's under construction, fighting the malevolent AI control GPT. Traveling from the 23rd century to the 32nd century, being hijacked by Osira. So you've all these different time periods that they've jumped into, and then this possible future where Maul and Locke have found the progenitor's tech and given it to the Breen, who then used it to devastate the Federation. And then it ends with, jumping to the time right after Burnham joined the Discovery crew, right after the mutiny, and having her, the season 1 Burnham and the season 5 Burnham having to battle it out. And I'm like, wow, it really emphasized how much Burnham has come along from that time.
Exactly. It was interesting to see they did a good job of dressing her up as she did then, and then the 5th season. And to do the CGI, editing so that she could be in 2 places at once and to have that fight, very well done. I mean, it really was. It was, of course, it kind of, again, improbable that all of a sudden they're going to have this big, knockdown, drag them out fight, but still.
Yeah. It was, but it was, I liked that episode. I liked the jump through time. I liked the resolution with Stamets being outside of time because of the spore thing.
Yep.
And Burnham and Rayner, because they were transporting as it was happening.
Right.
So I like that one.
That was very good.
And then one I didn't love as much was the Whistle Speak episode. That's the one where they had the Denobulan weather tower on the planet that is under the Prime Directive, and they have to do this race to the tower to get access. And it turns out the winner gets to be, a sacrifice to the gods. Which is kind of a cliche. But then Burnham breaks the Prime Directive in order to basically dispel the Halonites' religion. That technology is not religion. I'm like, I felt like a little bit like we're taking a shot at religion in this one.
Yeah,
how you felt about it.
I was irritated about that, but as someone too who's fought to lose weight and get into shape where I can go run, Tilly is not making that run. I don't care what kind of shape she is in. She's not making that run. Burnham, absolutely. Tilly, no. Sorry. I'm not part of the body positivity movement. I'm positive my body needs to get smaller.
I mean, I'm more like Tilly than you are, and I know that I wouldn't have made that run.
No, but so, I mean, and then you had the whole thing of, well, you had these towers that were weather control towers, and they're breaking down. So there's one left that's still working, but it's starting to break down. Why didn't they stay and fix like all of them?
Right. Well,
or, at least send a message to Starfleet saying, hey, we're going to come and fix, we'll send the repair crew, the cable company to come repair your towers or whatever.
We'll be here next week between 12 and 6 p.m.
Yep, exactly.
Well, I mean, I guess you can hope, like, after all this was done and we did all the progenitor stuff, we went back. Oh, by the way, remember that planet? So
we might want to help them.
But you're right. Like, there's a lot of people along the way that they need some help. And then another one is the episode, I guess I mentioned at Lagrange Point, although I guess it kind of covered a couple, because it wasn't just Lagrange Point, but it was a couple episodes where they were in the Eternal Gallery and Archive, which is essentially a Smithsonian / Library of Congress in space. It had shades of National Treasure in that episode. For me, I don't know if you got that feeling of it. That's what I was feeling.
I thought that was kind of fun. But it was also, like you said, it was trying to find the object within this giant library junk collection.
Right.
No.
Yes, right. And then there was the whole it was called Labyrinth. That was episode 8.
Right.
So yeah, and then they get to the Lagrange point in episode 9. That one was directed by Jonathan Frakes, by the way, which was good because that was an action-packed episode, and really, Frakes is really good at those.
Yeah.
So how about you? Any episodes stand out for you as ones that you really enjoyed or had problems with?
No, not really. I mean, they were all, like I said, it was better as a season. So there weren't anything that, as I kind of look through the list, I go, oh yeah, that one was Whistle Speak was probably the worst in my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, just because it was, again, between the running stuff and then the religion and all that. But that's neither here nor there. It was pretty even as a season, and I think that's actually a compliment to it. I would say, most episodes were pretty good. They generally found what they needed to find by the end of the episode and went on to the next one.
What did you think of the Saru and Trina subplot, the marriage thing?
I've always felt it was kind of impractical to begin with, but I don't know. Yeah. I mean, because she's obviously much older, and I can't remember if they ever said how old she is, because she's Vulcan, Vulcan Romulan cross. So I don't know. I don't know how old she is. And of course, Saru is fairly young because his species, at least until recently, for his timeline, didn't live to be very old at all. Because they're cold. But I don't know. I kind of on that. But
it was very touchy feely a lot of the time. I mean, I think a lot of the Star Trek writers themselves are fascinated by Vulcan culture. We see that on Strange New Worlds, how often Spock and his relationship to T'Pring has come up. And even in the original series, the Vulcan culture coming up again and again. So I get why they might be interested. I found it a little odd that she would be so quickly taken with him. But I don't know. Maybe again, another species. Maybe it works different for Vulcans.
Well,
I didn't feel like it took. Yeah. I didn't feel like it took a lot away from the rest of the series. I don't think they spent like too much time on it, so that's fine.
But it was definitely one of those where they stopped whatever else was going on and talked about their feelings.
They did do that, yeah.
And of course, you had to have the requisite. Oh, what are our announcements going to sound like, and what bouquet are we going to have, and that conversation.
The wedding planning, yeah.
Yep.
But you had to get Saru out of the first officer position so you could put Raynor in, and that was really what it was about, was to get him off the ship. So I could see that. So in the end, Maul wants the tech. Her motivation becomes, I need to resurrect Locke because he dies. He sacrifices himself for her. And I thought, we're going to get Locke back. We never do, which I think was the right choice. I think that sacrifice had to stand.
We do get his body because she had basically beamed him into a portable transport buffer, and then at the end, where she's at the device, think, oh yes, it's going to be able to resurrect him, and of course it doesn't. It just kills her instead.
Yeah, the portable transport buffer becomes the magic bag of holding.
Exactly.
Like there's no mass in there. Apparently it doesn't store any mass.
It's all bits. I'm like. It's basically a little flash drive is what it is.
Flash drive for matter.
Yeah.
So they go into this portal, like into a other dimension what the progenitors are, which I thought was an interesting concept of these portals to different worlds, where they're like basically fighting through this area where the direction of gravity changes, and I thought that was pretty interesting, pretty fun.
Yep.
That whole battle.
Well, we find out how the progenitors seeded all the different worlds.
Yes, right, through all of these portals.
It's not they didn't fly to each world and do it. They went through these portals to seed them.
Right. There was a lot of talk about the progenitors as basically, our origin. They're God. They're like the God who made us. This is our beginning, which I thought was a very secular way of looking. I mean, it was again another one of these very not anti-religious, because I don't think they were trying to, in this sense of saying religion is false explicitly, but sort of by implication, that if the progenitors were who they said they were, then there must not be a God. I'm like, those two things aren't necessarily contradictory. Like, you could still be God if you have a race who seeds these planets with life.
Well, and then they kind of undermine that by having the progenitor hologram that shows up, the image, because it wasn't the actual progenitor, it was, you know, recorded hologram or whatever, just like in the TNG episode. Basically say, oh, well, we found this technology. They didn't even create it.
Right. That opens up interesting possibilities of you know, story possibilities of that there being yet another race. You know, sort of the fifth race or the fourth. You know, what was it? The Furlings from Stargate.
Yeah, there you go.
You know, like, or the, you know, or a race before the ancients. You know, so that's if you know Stargate, you know what I'm talking about. So I mean I found that part interesting. But they were like, throughout the season, though, there was this very clear, like, they kept using this language as if religion couldn't be true because we all came from the progenitors. Right. And that is not, just
not
because,
so much.
Just because they can manipulate life. And I mean, because they're not creating life from nothing, ex nihilo. They're creating different variations on their own lives, basically.
They're basically,
because that was the whole idea with the progenitors.
They're basically making GMOs. Genetically modified organisms off of themselves. Right.
They drop the Klingons over here and the humans on Earth and the Vulcans on Vulcan and, you know, that whole thing. So it was, it was never supposed to be the way that they were talking about it. So I thought that was interesting. But in the end, Burnham destroys the tech, even against orders, because she's been ordered by Kovic to bring it back. But she destroys it because she recognizes that it's too powerful for anyone to have,
which is probably the smartest thing of this series. I mean, Moore's idea.
If you got the magical ability to destroy access to nuclear weapons technology for every country in the world, and so they could never have access to it, I'd do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, no kidding.
every country, ours too. Nobody gets that nukes anymore. That would be I would be on top of that. Push that button as fast as I could.
Hit it multiple times, you know,
I saw like a meme about, like, you know, every time you press this button, it takes 1 year off your life, and the guy starts going tap 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 tap. Hey, slow down there, buddy, slow down. Oh man. So we wrap things up there, and then we get the series finale, essentially, which leaps ahead in time several decades. I don't know if it ever says. So after,
I guess 20,
Saru and Trina's wedding.
They had a son who was now getting his first command.
Well, more than 20, because he'd have to be, you know, he's not getting his command at 20 years old. 30 or 40 years, I would say, at least. Burnham's now an admiral. I like their house. It was a nice house that they had there up somewhere near Ontario, Vancouver, right? Where they filmed it. And they get this new Red Directive mission to take Discovery, restore it to its 23rd century appearance, and then drop it off in a specific location where Zora will wait for a long time for Calypso to show up, which was the Calypso short track. Which is kind of a funny, like, I think with the short track, they had put themselves into a bind. Like, I guess we have to end up here somehow. Well, what did you think of that ending?
Yeah, I was a little irritated by that ending. I mean, it was like, okay, this is trying to maintain canon when you already broke it into about 1 million pieces. But because the short track basically implied it was like 1,000 years, and the Discovery had been sitting there. So they implied it was the 32nd, 33rd century, somewhere in that point.
Yeah.
Well, then they jumped to the 32nd century. So now it's the 42nd century that it's sitting there for until.
Right. I didn't think of that. Yeah, that it is going to be 1,000 years from the moment they drop it off there. So this ship is now...
About, you know, the Federation had broken up again, had basically died off again in that 1,000 years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would guess. I mean, just a civilization lasting that long. But the idea of a ship lasting 1,000 years out there, just like on its own.
If it's running at low power, because it's only running Zora basically,
I guess,
just kind of floating.
And it's nothing to wear it down, I guess.
No.
You know, to make it rust, whatever.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah, it was, but it was a weird, like, you know, we created this situation for ourselves, and now we have to end there, like, because it doesn't. There's no, like, we're just supposed to buy that it's another secret time travel mission that we're doing this for, and that's that. Okay, I guess.
Yeah, it was, and you know, I mean, it was nice to see the Discovery back in its original shape instead of the super, you know, matter that they can, you know, have like the detached nacelles and everything. But beyond that, it's like,
yeah, it was never my favorite design for a ship, that triangle shape. But you know, it was, it grew on me a little bit, so it was fine. And then, you know, there's not much else to that. I mean, there was a lot of emotional, you know, exactly what you'd expect the ending of the series of Discovery to be, which is about 20 minutes of emotional reflection on everything. I mean, you look back on every other series that ended, whether it was TNG, the ones that had an ending, because TOS really didn't have an ending. It just got canceled. But TNG, DS9, Voyager, you know, they had definitive endings. They had, but it wasn't maudlin, like long maudlin endings. I mean, TNG,
went out with a bang.
The closest.
Yeah.
You had, I mean, Enterprise had that weird, you know, we're watching a holodeck thing, which nobody.
We don't
liked.
talk about that episode.
I mean, Picard had its ending, which was fine. It was actually more of a looking forward, where we're going, you know, Star Trek Legacy maybe. So that was fine. So this one was much more maudlin, much more emotional wallowing, as you'd expect from this series. So I guess that brings us to talking about our overall impression of the whole series of Enterprise. I mean, not Enterprise, Discovery.
Yeah.
This was the series that brought back Star Trek for us. It brought back small screen Star Trek. So in that sense, that was a positive. It gave us Strange New Worlds, also a positive.
Yeah.
What is your overall takeaway on Discovery?
You know, the first couple of seasons weren't bad. You know, so, like I said, the second season is a great season. It really is. You know, because we had Pike, we had the Enterprise, we got, you know, launched into Strange New Worlds from that. It was, you know, and it wasn't as, it didn't get as bad. We kind of joked a little bit about the, you know, the emotional USS emotional discovery and togetherness even early on. But even then it wasn't quite as bad. It was just, there were things that were just more implausible, like starting the whole thing off with the Vulcan hello, you know, starting the Klingon war because Burnham shoots down a Klingon and then everything goes into war. You know, stuff like that. That was a little implausible, but it wasn't until the third and fourth season that it just went off the rails. Just absolutely bizarre.
When it went 1,000 years into the future. Yeah.
Yep. And you know, the funny part is I know, speaking for myself, there was hope that, okay, we're going in the future. It's something new. It's something different. We can have a little more fun with it. And then they drag it down. You know, they made it worse instead of better. You know, but season 1 and 2, you know, looking back, weren't great, but they weren't bad. I mean, season 2 was good. I mean, I like season, but it wasn't like this, you know, best Star Trek season ever kind of thing, you know. But it was better in the first couple of seasons, and then this fifth season kind of got at least back up to that level.
Yeah,
I would dare say.
I was looking forward to next week's episode with season 5. You know what I mean? I wasn't in season 3 or season 4. You know, I was. It was a slog, and by the time we got to the end of season 4, I was ready for it to be done.
Yep.
The other thing about, you know, Discovery was always from the beginning peddled out as, you know, kind of be having an agenda, social agenda. It wasn't. I mean, I guess in retrospect, it was like, oh my gosh, this is really big deal. You know, when it first appeared, having a gay couple on board.
Yep.
And that was like, oh, hold my beer before season 3.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
We had non-binary characters, transgender characters. We had, it was just all down the line. And I just, I get the desire to have representation and to show people like themselves. But I mean, it just felt forced, and it felt like,
it was preachy.
I don't know.
It was preachy.
Very preachy. Yeah, that's the word. Yeah.
That's, I always joke about it, but it's true. I'm the preacher. As a Catholic priest, I'm a preacher. You're not. Those of you running those TV series, you're not. Don't stop preaching.
That's not your job.
Yeah, or I'll preach back.
I mean, one of the things I found, weird was the whole Adira being sort of a child, the foster child of Culber and Stamets, like, because they're gay. Like, I don't get like why, and she's non-binary. Like, I don't get why that's sort of why that's the automatically assumed. And we've seen previous shows where we had a parent and child on board a ship, and how that would work. The Crusher relationship. I mean, Wesley had his issues with, the story writer, the script writers had their issues with how they portrayed Wesley. But the mother-son relationship there it had to grow to be understandable and not bad at all. Whereas what we got, with Adira and Stamets and Culber was kind of just weird. It just
kind of creepy.
It never felt right. I mean, I don't mean anything salacious by that. I just felt like, it was just a really odd, like, are you an ensign, or are like a crew member, or are you their daughter, son thing, whatever, child? Yeah. And it's like, I never understood, like, how you would, like, from a well-run ship point of view, that's a really bad thing to have as one of your crew members, officers, to be also the child of these two other officers. It was a really weird thing.
I mean, it'd be one thing that if they adopted her, but then she went off to Starfleet Academy and became an ensign, but went on to another ship. That's one thing. Yeah. But then she comes back to Discovery.
Yeah. I mean, you could have done something like that. Yeah. So there's that. But I think I missed one of my favorite things to come out of, characters to come out of all of Discovery was Emperor Giorgio. Oh, yeah. I'm looking forward to Michelle Yeoh being in the Section 31 movie. It's going to be a movie now. But that character was great. And another one who sort of broke the mold of the emotional discovery sort of thing. Yeah,
she kind of again played off of it and kind of poked at it, and that would be a lot of fun. One character we really haven't talked about, but is Admiral Vance, Oded Fehr as Admiral Vance.
Oh, right.
I always enjoyed him. He was a very good character from right from the beginning.
Yes, for the last few seasons, I've always enjoyed him. They've kind of done weird things with him at times and try to make him more touchy-feely too. But in general, Charles Vance as an actor, I really enjoy. The Federation president,
Lyra Rilak.
Yes, Rilak. Yeah, who the actress was also in the.
She was in Stargate. She was like the control weapons officer or something like that on one of the Stargate ships.
Yes, she was on board the Daedalus as the weapons officer, but she was also in the one about like the alternate history where the Nazis took control of America. That was on Amazon Prime.
Oh yeah, Man in the High Castle.
Man in the High Castle. That's right. She was the wife of the top American Nazi. But she was in that. So, but I think she did a good job. I liked her. She was believable as Federation president. That was good.
She wasn't as much in the 5th season though, which was interesting. Because she was everywhere in the 4th season. She was all over the place. But then in this, she was we saw more of Saru's
Trina.
We saw more of Trina than we did the president.
That's true. We did. I mean, there was a lot of people. There was a big cast. There's a lot going on. So I guess that was the trick there. And anything else to say about the series? I mean,
I do have to say, I'm glad it's over.
Yeah. Well, I mean, although we do have to mention that there is a spinoff coming, Starfleet Academy.
Yep.
Featuring Mary Wiseman as Tilly. She will continue on that, and I wouldn't be surprised if a couple other characters from Discovery show up over there. Probably Adira. Will be on it.
You know, you'll see probably Burnham at some point, and but it'll be I have a feeling it's gonna be 90210 in space.
Yeah, I'm not really looking forward to it, to be honest. No. I don't think it's going to be a very interesting.
I'll give it a shot,
but the way it's been described.
I'll give it a shot because I've been wrong before. I was hesitant with Lower Decks, one of my favorites. I was just the Prodigy. I was I don't know about this. Excellent, very very good series.
Yeah.
So could be wrong, but my instincts are telling me that this is not the third time will not be the charm.
Yeah. You know who by the way, we didn't get mentioned once. I realize now as I'm looking through the cast list is Janet Reno.
She just showed up weird times.
Yeah,
she would just show up randomly.
But she was another one who this season was written better.
Yeah.
She was much less annoying.
Mm-hmm.
She was, she was a bit curmudgeonly at times, but
nothing wrong with that.
But she was better this season, I have to say. So that was.
I'll agree with that. Yeah, but so she would just show up weird times where really no rhyme or reason why all of a sudden she was in a scene. Like she'd be in like one scene in an episode, and it was just like, and I know it's because the actress comes and goes. Yep. She's named and she's got so I get that, but still, it's just weird the way they used her character.
Yeah. There was like she was the reason they found the archive, the Eternal Memory Archive, whatever it was. Yeah, it was odd. Well, so I mean, I think that's all that's there is to be said about Discovery. I mean, it was you came and started Star Trek again for us, so for that I'm grateful. But you're leaving now, and I'm not going to be sad about that.
I'm also grateful.
Let's make room for new series, new stories. I mean, there's some question whether after Starfleet Academy, are we going to get more Star Trek live action? In the future,
there's talk.
Are they going to go back to making movies?
Was it season 5 of Lower Decks is going to be the last one?
Yep, that's the last season of Lower Decks. Prodigy season 2 was the last of that,
as far as we know. Depending on what the response is, depending on what the response is from Netflix. If Netflix, if it turns out well for them, which I hope it is, because I've enjoyed it. They back
up a truck full of money to Paramount Plus. I'm sure Paramount Plus will not say no.
Well, and it's not
their troubles.
Yeah, well, it's just Paramount in general. I mean, at that point, because they turned it over to Netflix. So I think because they're even when you watch it on Netflix, it's a Netflix original. That's how they phrase it.
Oh, funny.
So I think it does. But even though it's got the little Star Trek teaser at the beginning. So I could see that could have a third season, which they would be very welcome. Let's just put it that way. No spoilers, but would be very welcome.
They leave. I'm sure they leave season 2 open ended. I haven't seen the season 2 all of.
Yeah, as we record this, Dom hasn't seen it yet, but I have. So.
Okay, so there's been talk of Star Trek Legacy, which is the follow-on to the end of Picard season 3, but nothing's really that I know of has happened with that. But a lot of this has to do with the business problems that Paramount Plus is having, which is they are struggling as a streaming service. A bunch of the streaming services have been struggling. Yeah. And as we record this, I think there is an agreement now for Skydance Productions to buy Paramount, like the company.
Oh, really?
Or merge. Yeah. Now, what that means for Paramount Plus, I don't know, but Star Trek is a valuable intellectual property.
Oh, yeah.
That of all the things that they'd be buying that Paramount owns, I can't imagine that they wouldn't take advantage of Star Trek in whatever form.
Well, and part of the problem is with Paramount Plus is they really don't have a lot of exclusives that are popular. I mean, you've got like the Taylor Sheridan, Yellowstone and Tulsa King and those shows that have been doing well, and they're really good shows. You got Star Trek, and everything else is stuff that they broadcast on CBS or one of their other networks.
Some of it is series that used to be on broadcast and now are just on Paramount, like SEAL Team, which was one of my favorites, became streaming only. And I don't even know if that's ever coming back, to be honest. I haven't
Probably not.
seen hide nor hair of it in ages. They had that Halo series, which is okay. I think Halo fans are about it. I've never played Halo, so I don't know the lore. But I kind of enjoyed it. Yeah. There's not a lot there.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what they do with Star Trek going forward, because there is possibilities. There's lots of possibilities. Yep. One thing I would like to see, go to a simpler episodes again, where we can have a 20-25 episode season. And I don't know how they would do that with current technology and labor agreements and everything, because that's a big part of it. It costs so much per episode that it's outrageous. And that's why we only get the 8 to 10, 12 episodes a season. And I'd love it if we got, again, up to 25, 30, like it was with TNG and DS9 and shows like that, where they could have more fun with it.
If we were able to accept, because with animation, we got that, like with Prodigy, it was 20 episodes. If we were, as an audience, willing to accept lower quality CG, lower quality special effects for a longer season, I might be willing to make that trade-off, honestly. I think
it would still be better than anything that was put out in the 90s by a long shot.
Right. As far as the CG.
But I don't know if CG is even that big of a deal anymore, because so many of the tools are so mature now. And of course, it's, once you make the model of the ship, it's just putting it within your 3D world, so to speak. Stuff like that.
So it's probably location shooting and cast and maybe and some equipment. And probably not so much the outer space special effects, but more the on set, like replacing faces and that sort of stuff. The stuff you don't really even notice necessarily even.
So I wonder how much the magic sets they've got now, where they're basically sets surrounded by giant LCD screens. I wonder how much that helps. The
volume that Disney uses.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, that was a huge thing that brought costs down. Although even Disney has sort of gone away from heavy reliance on it. Their more recent series have kind of gone away from using the volume. I guess maybe because fans were noticing. But like honestly, if you could say, I will give you 25 episodes of Strange New Worlds, and we're going to use the volume to shoot it, I'd be like, I'm there. I'm on it.
We'll have a couple of basics. We'll have a couple of basic sets, the bridge and room and a couple of rooms and stuff like that. And then the volume. Sure. Right. Love it. Perfect.
You give me 3 series doing 25 episodes each, and I'm a year-round subscriber to Paramount Plus.
Exactly.
That's how, to me, that solves the problem of people signing up for 8 weeks and then dropping off until the next series comes along.
Or worse, on their aspect, somebody who waits till the series is done, does
signs up for a month,
binges 2 or 3 series during that month, and then comes back in a year.
Then unsubscribes. Right. If you were giving me more, I would do it. I have the year round as it is now because I need to do the old series for the podcast. Yep. But if I were just a regular Joe, I don't know that I would do that. Well, all right. So I guess we've talked all about Discovery. We will never speak of it again.
May it rest in pieces. May
it rest in that graveyard of ships waiting for Calypso to get it.
Yep.
All right. So let's take a moment now to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Star Trek and all the shows at StarQuest. We could not do this without your continued financial support. So we are very grateful for you, our patrons. And that's it from us. What did you think of Star Trek Discovery Season 5? You can let us know by visiting this post on Patreon and leaving some feedback, or send us an email to trek@sqpn.com. You can always subscribe to the show, The Secrets of Star Trek, by visiting sqpn.com/trek. You can watch us on YouTube. You can go to our Discord at sqpn.com/discord, where there is a special patrons channel, by the way, just for patrons. But there's also some Star Trek channels there. So in any case, Father Cory Sticha, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of Star Trek.
Well, thank you, Dom. And since Jimmy's not here, live long and prosper.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Star Trek on StarQuest, and I hope this is not the last time that Father Cory and I can talk about Star Trek together on a podcast.
Yes.
We hope you've enjoyed this Patrons special episode. The Secrets of Star Trek is only possible because of the generosity of our patrons on Patreon. If you'd like to support the Secrets of Star Trek and enjoy this and other special benefits for patrons, please go to sqpn.com/give.